The history of the South African Jewish community goes back 180 years. The community started officially in 1841.
Back in 1841, 17 men gathered in Helmsley Place.
There are listed 17 names, all male. It's almost without a doubt there were women present as well. Indeed, one of those males actually had 8 daughters, and I think it's unlikely that all 8 of them would have been excluded.
They then continued to meet until 1849.
In 1849, they bought a house a little further down the road in Bouquet Street, and they converted that, 2 houses in fact. The one was converted into a synagogue and the other into a house for their rabbi. So that's the first synagogue, but it's not a custom-built synagogue, it's a converted house.
In 1863, they were big enough, the congregation was large enough to build their own first custom-built synagogue, which in fact turns out to be the first custom-built synagogue in sub-Saharan Africa. So it was a momentous occasion. From 1863 to 1905, they prayed in the old synagogue, what we call today the old shul.
It was the mother synagogue for the whole of Southern Africa and beyond. In many ways, you might think of it as the cradle of Jewish kind.
And then the community grew quite quickly, and then by 1905, they'd outgrown the small synagogue, they were ready for the big one, the great synagogue, Tikvat Yisrael, Cape Town Hebrew congregation, known as the Gardens Shul.
The mother shul of South Africa, not just Cape Town.
From this community, from the first minyan that took place in 1841 to today, the Gardens Shul has been a long-lasting, unstoppable congregation, really. There's been a daily minyan for 180 years. I mean, that really is something to behold.
Being in this magnificent building, you really do get a great sense of history and all the people that have come before you, and the long, deep connection that the shul has for South African Jewry.
And it's a privilege to think of the continuity of Judaism in the city of Cape Town.
Some of the traditions of the Gardens Shul, others in the city found very rigid. All these wardens and the president wore morning suits and top hats.
My father would come to shul over Yontif with a black hamburger.
And there was a very rigid way of entering the shul.
When you were a child, you weren't allowed to be inside. You had to be at the children's service.
The services were more structured. They were very formal. The choir, for example, didn't perform on the bima, God forbid. The choir was in the loft.
It used to be a very formal shul, the English shul, and that's the way things were done.
God help us if there would have been dancing with the Torah the way we do today, unheard of in the Gardens Shul.
One thing that I've certainly noticed over the years is how the shul has embraced modernity.
I'm Jewish and I like it a lot. He is Jewish and he likes it a lot. She is Jewish and she likes it a lot. They are Jewish and they like it a lot.
I've seen how the shul has changed over the years, getting the young people involved, bringing their children, all kinds of inclusion of the whole family.
We are Jewish and we like it a lot.
I love Gardens Shul.
I've seen the shul evolve over the years to not just being about a shul service, but actually about being a place where people come to connect and truly experience a spiritual moment and a moment of connection.
Things have changed dramatically.
It doesn't mean that Judaism's changed. It doesn't mean that Torah's changed. It means that we are able to grapple with the future.
It's akin to a situation where the omo, the actual recipe has remained the same, but the packaging has changed.
Since I've joined in the mid-80s, the major change that I've noticed is that the average age of the congregation has come down dramatically.
The shul has developed amazingly. I mean, you know, the congregation has grown in leaps and bounds with lots of young people.
The music, the new tunes, and people enjoying it, you know, even the older people enjoying all the new ideas and loving it.
Today, they're more joyous. People have got more feeling here, more participation. And I put that down to the current rabbi.
The current rabbi had resigned and we were looking for a new rabbi. And there were 2 applicants.
I got a call from my chairman at the time. I was vice chairman, Michael Gavronski, and he said to me, "We've got a candidate." So I said, "Tell me about the candidate." He says, well, he's 24 years old and he's Chabad.
And I interviewed him with my vice chairman, Solly Berger.
I suppose within a half an hour, he and I had decided that this was the man for us.
I spent a few hours on the phone talking to congregants, saying to them, this is the best thing that's ever happened to the Gardens Shul. And I was right.
Solly said, "Come, let me take you into the shul." And I walked into the shul, and I was blown away.
Here's someone who is just a few months younger than me, someone who I could relate to on a personal level, and for the first time really get spiritual guidance and growth with someone who is my age and relatable.
Very analytical, very focused.
The main reason why people come to this shul is because of our rabbi and rebbitzin. They have done yeoman work over the past 13 or 14 years, and people absolutely love them both.
It's a changed place.
Rabbi Feldman brought the energy and a lot of innovative programs, him and Sarah.
The rabbi and Sarah have really done a great job in welcoming people into their community to help build that spirit and build a Jewish identity with their community.
I just felt the connection, and Sarah felt the connection. And here we are today, 14 years later.
We were received really with open arms. Everyone was very kind, loving, caring, took us on, became part of the Gardens Shul family.
Serving the Gardens Shul community is an incredible honor for myself, for Sarah, for our children, Meni, Chaim, Leah, Rosa, Esther. I mean, we feel that the Gardens Shul isn't just a community to us. The Gardens Shul is our family.
The shul also has a central role in the Jewish life cycle. So from birth to passing, marriage, bar and bat mitzvahs, bris milah, it all takes place here. And I think that sense of community is actually a bedrock for a lot of people, especially in the current climate when people are feeling disconnected. The shul remains constant. It's a constant in one's life.
My own involvement in the Garden Shul goes back to when I was a mere boy.
I come from a very shul-orientated family.
I have grown up in this shul from the day I was born, celebrated every simcha, every family milestone.
I'm the 3rd generation of Bagrams in the shul.
My wife and I were married where I sit here today. We had my late mother's memorial in the shul.
It's my second home. It's where I first was called up to the bima to say my Haftarah.
My history started in the shul at the age of 3 when my father carried me in.
I've been present at the Garden Shul since the age of 8.5 years old.
The Kaimas family go back with the shul probably to around about 1920, 1922.
My association with the Garden Shul goes back to the 50s.
I love the shul. It's been my home for the last 7 years.
My bar mitzvah was held at the Garden Shul.
It's the first place I put my tefillin on.
My great-grandfather, Aubrey Stone, was the chairman of Gardens Shul.
My bar mitzvah is going to be at the Garden Shul.
My uncle is Honiji.
Gerald and I were married in the shul, and the shul was our great love, and we had 3 bar mitzvahs here.
My father was bar mitzvahed here in 1928. My parents were married here in 1940.
I performed the Brit Milah on both of my sons, right here as well.
I was bar mitzvahed here in 1970. I was married here 40 years ago.
While the world is changing so much around us and it's so unpredictable, the shul has always been the one constant.
There is no place that I would rather be on Yom Kippur than to be a part of the Gardens Shul and have a sense of belonging and connection and inspiration.
To me, the Garden Shul is a place where I can come and be part of a community.
What I love about Gardens Shul is being with my friends and learning new things in children's service.
It's about belonging to a group of people that have an incredible connection to our heritage, our identity, and it's not just about being religious. For me, it's about a Jewish connection.
I remember when we booked the Gardens Shul choir to sing at our wedding. It was December 2007, December the 9th, and we were under the chuppah, Debbie and I, wondering what had happened to the choir, because they never arrived. I don't know if they got lost somewhere in the Franschhoek Triangle. Maybe Solly Berger took them for a wine tasting. Solly, be honest with us.
A wonderful innovation of Rabbi Feldman has been Friday Night Live.
The Friday Night Live is something that the rabbi initiated, I think, in the first couple of months after he joined our shul.
Friday Night Live has been one of the joys and pleasures that I have as a member of the congregation.
It was a fantastic idea. In actual fact, it was so fantastic that all the other shuls in the country started copying him.
How it started was, it was my first Rosh Hashanah, my first high holidays here at the Gardens Shul, and I stood up at the, on the pulpit, and I turned around to the community. I said, guys, we should do this once a month.
I think the great thing about Friday Night Live for young families and for youngsters is it's something different.
So we started off just coming here on Friday nights and really felt a beautiful spirituality and sense of connection.
It's a lot more festive. There's a lot more atmosphere than just a regular Friday night.
I actually compared it to a game of golf. I said, you ready to give up, 10, how many hours for a game of golf? I said 10 hours a year, 12 hours a year to come to shul.
I think Friday Night Live's been a success because of Hoshi's passion. The rabbi puts his heart and soul into it.
And I remember that first Friday Night Live when I stood up on the pulpit. There were over 500 people in shul, and I started off my drosha, my sermon, by saying Good Yom Tov, as what we would do over the high holiday period. It wasn't just a Shabbos for us, and that really inaugurated for our community a monthly celebration where we celebrated Yom Tov once a month on Shabbat.
We've had some very special moments. There was one that sticks out in my memory when we celebrated all our members who were celebrating golden wedding anniversaries.
Favorite Friday Night Live possibly would be the 100th Friday Night Live.
It brought the community to the gardens.
My favorite Friday Night Lives are all the anniversary ones because there's lots of sushi and lots of people come.
But my favorite Friday night experience would definitely be the annual every November when we open up the historic doors to the shul, which is the original entrance of the shul in the back. And we open up out into the company gardens.
One of my favorite stories about the Garden Shul is the 4th Friday Night Live reunion, the 4-year reunion, where I was asked to perform here on a Friday night. The rabbi phoned me and said, Nick, it's the 4th year reunion of Friday Night Live. Would you perform? Would you do stand-up comedy? And I said, Rabbi, are you asking me to work on the Shabbos? And he said, oh my God, are you mad? It's not work. We're not going to pay you.
So the Gardens Shul has always had an illustrious history of cantors and choirs that have added so much gravitas, so much beauty, so much majesty to its services.
The Gardens Shul has had a choir for well over 100 years, unbroken. If you go back just a mere 20 years, virtually every congregation had a choir. We will always be here at the Gardens Shul. It's a tradition that we started in Cape Town and we will continue.
My favorite choral piece is a piece I brought back from the Great Barrier Reef before it died.
My favorite choral piece, I would think, is the Hallelujah, which is done on the Rosh Hashanah service.
What's happened over the years is that from the more traditional choral pieces, Choni G still does some of those, because we love to still hold on to the tradition, but he's brought a new voice, a new sound.
I love Choni G. I think my entire generation loves Choni G.
My favorite Choni G song is a Hafti.
I'd have to go back and say everything that he sang at our wedding.
Am I limited to only one?
Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Lechadodi, Ledor Vador.
Dor Vador.
I'm just going to have to say it. It's Ledor Vador on a Shabbat morning.
One of the most popular songs that we sing in Shul, that people love, is Ledor Vador.
It's a magnificent piece.
There's nothing like Ledor Vador on a Shabbos morning.
My favorite Choni G song is probably the one that he won Jewish Idols with back in 1999. And I think it was the song by Steelers Wheel, Stuck in the Middle with Jews.
So you have classics from the Dor Vador to Oseh Shalom that Choni has us crying and he has us dancing in the aisles.
Or was it Tanita Tikarim? I think it was No More I Love Jews.
We Jews love food. So traditionally after a Shabbat morning service around the world, congregations gather for what they call a kiddush. But in South Africa, it's called a bracha.
One of the things that I miss most about the bracha would definitely be Hazel's cheesecake.
I miss most the kichel, the herring.
The salmon and bagel rolls and the cheesecakes. Cheesecakes.
Well, I don't come to Shul for calorie intake. But what I miss most about Hazel Brochus is Hazel.
I miss Hazel's brachas so much.
But what my husband misses is more important, and that's the lokshen pudding. So that's, sometimes I make it for him specially to give him.
But it's not like Hazel's.
No, definitely not. It's never right.
The impact of COVID has been quite difficult, quite challenging for our community. It's a time of uncertainty. It's a time when we actually can't, for much of COVID, haven't been able to gather in Shul. And even when we have, it's been limited numbers. And I think it's highlighted more than ever what the community actually offered to people. And we've tried our best here at the Gardens Shul to still keep the community together. So whether it was with the weekly Zooms before Shabbat, whether it was Choni doing the Havdalah on the Zooms with people dancing in their homes and in the streets.
The silver lining that we can take out of COVID is we've continued to evolve and we've gone from bricks and mortar to bits and bytes. But despite being socially isolated from each other, I don't think the community has ever been more greater connected.
Belonging to the Gardens Shul today means I never have to leave home. Whenever I want to attend a virtual service, I can.
Suddenly on a Friday, Choni's music would be playing in our house. We were playing his album. Ailey and I started making chalot together. I would make the dough, she would plait it. The sudden calmness came over our household for Shabbat, and it was an incredible feeling for us.
The rabbi was very innovative when he started the Zoom services, which have seen large attendances and with people participating from around the world.
I remember on one occasion there was somebody in New York and someone somewhere else, Florida, hadn't seen each other since 19 Futsak at the Garden Shul, and they connected on live.
The Shul is there to celebrate all of your simchas and also to share in your sorrows. And I think that's one of the things that have been highlighted with the current COVID situation is the shul is really the center of community and there to support its members.
This is the spirit of our Jewish community.
The Torah, of course, represents the 5 books of Moses as it was handed down at Mount Sinai to the Jewish people through our great prophet Moses himself.
And the fact that a week before our 180th milestone, that we have a new Torah coming into our congregation symbolizes not only the history, but symbolizes the vibrancy of the present into the future.
The Torah that you see today is the identical Torah, written exactly the same way as it was more than 5,000 years ago. The whole ceremony of bringing the Torah to Cape Town, of having it consecrated in this synagogue, of having it placed with the other Sifrei Torah in the Ark, is a very, very special moment for our community.
It's a tremendous simcha for the congregation. When I think about the future of the Gardens Shul, I often like to use the terminology from Hans Rosling when he says he's not an optimist, he's not a pessimist, he's a possibilist. And that's how I see myself. I see incredible possibilities for the future of our community, to build on the illustrious forebears, to build on all the beautiful traditions of the past towards a beautiful and magnificent future.
Very, very few Jewish congregations have lasted 180 years.
Celebrating 180 years of the Garden Shul is a major milestone in one's life.
As we celebrate the 180th anniversary of the Gardens Synagogue, I think that the synagogue stands as the epicenter of community.
My hopes for the future is that we will continue on the trend we've been for the last few years, that we will see growth in membership once we can return to some semblance of normality.
I'm really excited about the future of the Garden Shul. It's been really special personally seeing my son have his bar mitzvah at the shul and now seeing him lane each Shabbos after that. So I'm excited to see my kids growing up in the shul with the community.
I'm looking forward to the shul, to the congregation growing the way it has been growing for the last 14 years.
I'm hoping to say my Haftorah again in shul, to remember it and stay a part of it.
My big wish is for myself to be able to celebrate another 20 years so I could see the 200 years.
I'm celebrating my bar mitzvah in October with the Garden Shul.
My wish for the Garden Shul is that it continues to grow spiritually, culturally, and socially for everyone who passes through its doors.
My wish for the Garden Shul going forward is that we can continue to grow as a community.
My wish for the community going forward is, please God, we're able to return back to a sense of normalcy soon, and I look forward to welcoming everyone back into shul.
And I wish only blessings and simchas and good times for this shul.
I'm looking forward to my daughter's bat mitzvah next year at the shul.
Following from my parents and my grandparents and their involvement in the shul, my hope is to continue that legacy and to continue growing in this space, and especially considering we're getting married in January, and to start our own journey and our own life story in the shul.
Next year will be my daughter's bat mitzvah at the shul. She'll be 12, Elia, and in 2026 it'll be Gadi's bar mitzvah.
I've had chills go up my spine listening to the choir, Choni, being in this building. My dad had his bar mitzvah in here. My grandmother was married in here. There's this tradition and lineage and legacy, and long may it continue.
Sitting in my apartment in Ranana and thinking about what the Garden Shul means to me brings back so many memories. Memories of the children's service, memories of chocolate on Simchat Torah, memories of trying to lip read while communicating with my brothers and cousins downstairs, listening to the beautiful choir stuffing sweets in my face at the end of the fast, and been told to be quiet like 100 times. Good memories that I share often with my 4 daughters.
I am Philip Lenskowski speaking to you from New York City. I listen every week to Kabbalat Shabbat emanating from the Gardens Shul, conducted by Rabbi Feldman.
Yeah, living in London, away from that all, we still feel very much part of the Gardens family. Every time we're in Cape Town, we make sure we spend a couple of Shabbases with the Gardens, at Gardens with our Gardens friends and with Sarah and Oshi, and we still feel a very, very close connection to the Gardens Shul and to the community. We try to join the Friday afternoon Kabbalat Shabbos, and we obviously love the rabbi, the Rebbitzin, and Choni.
Chapman family has been involved with the Gardens Shul for over 100 years. I stay connected with the Gardens Shul because my mother is still a member, and because my late father said to me before I left for Canada, please make sure to come back for simchas and don't wait for sad occasions.
"18 in the Jewish religion is a special number. 180 is 10 times that. And for our shul, this represents an opportunity to reflect on 180 years of Judaism, survived in its original form, praying just the same way as our forefathers did when they landed in the Cape, started this little shul, and grew it into what it is today.
I'm very pleased that I'm here living in this time for 180th celebration. I wonder what those early founders of the shul said. What will we do in 180 years' time? And they obviously said Chai.
Mazel Tov, Gardens Shul. Mazel Tov to anybody who's watching this, wherever you are in the world. Please God, may we be blessed to celebrate many more simchas, many more happy occasions in good health. Mit Mazel and Glick, L'chaim, Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. We are growing from strength to strength. We will grow from strength to strength, and we will be there forever.
We are privileged to be able to share in this milestone in our history.
Mazel Tov!
Mazel Tov, Gardens Shul!
Mazel Tov! Mazel Tov!
Mazel Tov, Gardens Shul!
Mazel Tov!
Mazel Tov!
Mazel Tov!
Mazel Tov!
Mazel Tov!
L'chaim, chazak.
Mazel Tov! Or as non-Jews say, Mazel Tov!
Mazel Tov on the 180th. Got more energy, we can do more.
Mazel Tov! Mazel Tov!
Mazel Tov! Mazel Tov!
נודה למשיענו, ברוך אלוקינו, ברוך אדוננו, ברוך מלכנו, ברוך משיענו. תירה לה 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 לה, תירה לה 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 לה, תירה לה 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 לה. אתה הוא אלוקינו, אתה הוא אדוננו, אתה הוא מלכנו, אתה הוא משיענו, אתה הוא שהקצירו אבותינו לפניך, כתורת עשה עמים.